Welcome to the campaign strategy section of my Wood Elf race guide. This part will focus on the campaign gameplay and strategy for the Wood Elves, including starting out, later expansion, and the different sub-factions. Disclaimer. This guide is based on my personal experiences and opinions and is by no means the definitive way to play the game Immortal Empires. If you have a different strategy or want to add something to mine, please leave a comment down below. Since their recent rework, the Wood Elves are in a really good place and are pretty fun on top of being insanely strong. The Magic Forest focused gameplay is fun and powerful as it essentially allows you to have these super defensible strongholds in key locations all over the map that require several armies to even attempt to take them out. On top of this, the ability to instantly travel between them is extremely powerful, as long as you're in a magical forest, you can be anywhere on the map in the span of a single turn. Once you get to the stage where this also has some cooldown reduction, it becomes ridiculous how global you are, and you need several factions across the entire map working against you to stop you. One slight downside of this global presence is if you haven't got the cooldown reduction yet, and something pops up in the place you just left, it can feel incredibly bad, having to either just accept it, or walk all the way back in a desperate attempt to fix it. As well as this, if you start work on too many forests at once, you can end up with a lot of work to do in a lot of places and not enough units to perform those jobs. This spreading yourself too thin is prevalent in most factions that have settlements in different places like Eltharion and Malice, so just make sure you're either finished or are leaving someone to finish before you leave an area. If you do manage to secure a lot of forests and get the rituals done in them, the bonuses they provide to the whole faction add up and can start the snowball rolling, and this is very hard to stop. This can be a good or a bad thing, as they are insanely powerful, but it does mean for the last 40 turns or so of my campaign, I was pretty bored, as I was just moving from forest to forest and growing them with ease. On top of these bonuses, as you grow the Oak of Ages, you receive missions that allow you to confederate all the other Wood Elves on the map aside from Dryka. These missions are not even the slightest bit challenging, and mean that you get on even bigger of a snowball, as not only do you have all of these bonuses coming in, but you also have every legendary lord that you could want on your side. Finally, one area where the Wood Elves technically struggle is the outposts. I say technically because while they are weak, you can manage just fine without even using them. The inability to make non-magical forest settlements into anything useful is a bit of a pain, expansion and trade-wise, but as I mentioned, you can manage just fine without them, so I wouldn't worry. Now I'll go over my personal experience with the campaign. I played as the Sisters of Twilight, as voted for by the Discord, so I started out at the Witchwood. But first, a word from our sponsor, my own Twitch channel.
You there. You enjoy content but wish there was a way to berate the person you're watching? You wish you could see in real time the mental breakdown of a professional gamer? If so, then I have just the thing for you. Introducing COLONELDAMNEDERS live streams. With Colonel streams, you get to see every play, even the ones you would rather you didn't. You get to see the highs,
You get your cheeks clapped.
and the lows.
Come on, man, how?
You get insights into the mind of a professional in the field of gaming.
Let me tell you, if you ever get the chance to go to Islands of Adventure and try butterbeer, it is absolutely horrific. It is the sweetest thing that I've ever drank. When I drank it, I thought my teeth were going to fall straight out.
You get witty comedy.
Did you know that hammerers do armor piercing because they actually just crush the armor into the person and use it as a weapon? I swear to God, if I get that comment any more times, I'm going to
Engaging conversation. And of course, no stream would be complete without some love interests.
We all know that Henry Cavill, hot man, let's be honest. That man, he's attractive himself.
So, if you want to see all of this and so much more, then head on over to twitch.tv/ColonelDamneders. That's twitch.tv/ColonelDamneders, and follow the channel so that you never miss a stream. Colonel streams happen twice a week on Thursday nights at 6:30 GMT and Sundays at 5 PM GMT, so be sure to clear your schedule because you don't want to miss a thing. One more time, that's twitch.tv/ColonelDamneders, or just click the first link in the description. I'll now return you to your regularly scheduled programming.
Firstly, I set about securing the surrounding area by eradicating the Dark Elves and making friends with the nearby Tomb Kings and High Elves. This allowed me to get a nice bit of forest health quite quickly by raising settlements and completing any forest battles that showed up. It wasn't long before I got my forest to max health and initiated the first ritual of rebirth. I stuck around with the sisters to defend against any invaders, and then, once the ritual was complete, I loaded up their army with the best units I had at the time and sent them off to Orion's camp to follow up on a mission I received. Completing the mission allowed me to confederate Orion and take control of his magical forest, where I could start the cycle all over again. I took on the Tomb Kings in the area but held off attacking the dwarves as I knew I'd want to fight them later for another confederation mission. As all this was going on, I was upgrading the Oak of Ages whenever I could afford it to unlock the confederation missions that would allow me to take control of all Wood Elf factions on the map. While I was waiting to attack the dwarves, I headed to Laurelorn Forest to attack some Norskins and confederate them and began work on yet another forest. By this point, I had also confederated Widgeroth, so I was reconfiguring their armies so I could send them to assist where needed. I was now working on 2 forests at once and could take on the dwarves with ease to get yet another confederation under my belt. Once they were taken care of, I headed back to Orion's camp to complete the Ritual of Rebirth. Pretty much as soon as I was finished with that, I had Lorelorn ready to complete its ritual, so I left an army there and sent the sisters off to take on Dryker. At the same time as this, I'd sent that Widgeroth army over to Gloomwood to take the forest there, and had also dispatched the newly confederated Durthu to take the Lustrian forest. This is that snowball I was talking about, as I was getting forests ready for rituals before I could even complete the ritual before. To top all this off, I'd also managed to get the Oak of Ages to 500 health, and it was ready to start its ritual. So as soon as my current one ended, I started it and began my path to the short victory. The defense was more challenging than the regular forests, but by this point I had a crack team of legendary lords waiting by every entrance to the forest in ambush stance, meaning any intruders met a swift end. Once the ritual was complete, I sent my other lords across the map to secure the remaining forests and sent the sisters to take on the defense of the Oak, the final battle in the campaign. My oh my, that wasn't the best. The battle was real easy even for a battle scrub like me, and after completing it with hardly a scratch on me, I achieved the short victory. I could have easily stuck around and completed the other rituals, but at that point, it was just a point-and-click adventure with a bunch of turn timers sprinkled in, so I decided to call it there. Now I'll go over the different factions and cover their starting locations, expansion options, and any unique effects they bring. First up, we have Talcin, who start at King's Glade, and, as with all but one faction, also own the Oak of Ages from turn 1. Their climate preferences are non-existent since they can technically settle anywhere, but only with outposts. The unique faction effects are +10 leadership during forest battles and -15% upkeep for cavalry units. They also get access to the Wild Hunt events, which double the effect of office titles, as well as granting -5 turns to the cooldown of the Deep Roots. These hunts only occur once every 10 turns and last for 10 turns each, meaning 10 turns on and 10 off. Expansion options are the same for almost every faction. You want the forests and nothing else, so expansion is only really decided by which forest you want to take over first, or which ones are the easiest. For me, the easiest route was Orion's, as you get a quest to confederate them quite early. After this, you can go to Lorelorn, as they can also be confederated quite quickly by attacking one Norscan. And after this, it's really down to your preference and who you want to fight. As long as you keep contributing to a forest, you can't really go wrong, so feel free to follow your heart for the most part. Next up, we have Aguilon, who start at Waterfall Palace. They have the same climate preferences as Talcin, and their faction effects are -50% recruitment cost for branch wraiths and +10 melee attack during forest battles. You can also use Aspects mechanic, which allows you to upgrade forest spirit units with one of 3 aspects that can be swapped out whenever you want. The exact effects can vary, but generally Birch gets you more damage and less defense, Willow gets less AP damage for more chaff damage, and finally Oak makes them slower but tougher. As for expansion, since they start in the same place as Talcin, the same advice applies. Next we have the Heralds of Ariel, who start in the Witchwood. They have the same climate preferences as the other 2, and their unique effects are +10% ammo for all armies and the Volley of Kurnos ability for all Hawk Riders. They also get access to the Forge of Daith, which allows them to craft and upgrade powerful items. By default, they get new items every 10 turns and can upgrade them every 2 turns as long as they win a battle to light the forge. You can choose to either temporarily upgrade items to be super powerful or permanently upgrade them slightly, and this is the way to go pretty much all the time. Once you have all the items Daith can offer, he will instead give you buffs to the faction armies every 10 turns, and while they aren't out of this world and overpowered, they are pretty good. Now their expansion varies very slightly in the beginning as they start out in a magical forest, so you want to secure that as quickly as possible before moving on to another one. Once you have this done, however, then it is the exact same plan as the other one. Our final faction is the Wargrove of Woe, who start out at Griffin Wood, and are the only Wood Elf faction who do not start with the Oak of Ages. Again, they have the same climate preferences as the others, and their unique effects are -10% upkeep for tree spirit units and +10% for all elf units, and they also get -40 relations with all other wood elves. They also start with 1 amber and get 2 extra amber techs. All elven units are also glamoured, which causes them to be less effective in battle but also expendable, which creates a weird backwards playstyle. On top of this, they also get the same aspect mechanic as Aguilon and a forest spirit mechanic. This allows them to instantly recruit from a pool of forest units that I'll cover in the battle section. It's similar to the Raised Dead mechanic, but instead of needing to be near a battle site, the stockpile just builds up over time and can potentially allow you to recruit a massive number of units in a single turn. Now for expansion, they start out in a magical forest, so you firstly want to secure that before heading pretty much anywhere. After this, however, they have 2 options, since they don't start in the Oak of Ages. They can either find a way to take that either by force or diplomacy, or just ignore it and do some other forest before coming back to it later. Either option you choose, and you can refer back to the other expansion notes, as again, it's just the same. Now I'll cover the faction mechanics and other miscellaneous info. The faction does not have commandments, despite being able to technically take over all settlements in the world, but since this is only an outpost form, it's understandable why. Their research tree consists of 3 different areas, and while they do share some common effects, each section mostly focuses on a particular area. The top half is mostly focused on infrastructure and diplomacy. The bottom half is focused mostly on battle projects, and the middle section is the Amber section, which has projects that can only be unlocked by spending armor. These projects are very powerful and only take a single turn to complete, so every time you get your hands on an Amber, you want to spend it as soon as possible. Speaking of which, Amber. It's been reworked and it is now more simple than ever. It can only be gained by completing rituals of rebirth in magical forests, and can only be spent on the aforementioned research projects. Simple. The Wood Elves also have the officers mechanic, which allow you to post lords in specific positions, depending on the type of lord they are and what kind of thing you want them to do. It would take far too long to list all of them, so I'll just show them on screen now. While none of these buffs are going to push a lord into the realm of being overpowered, they are still pretty dang powerful and make for some nice free bonuses, and no one can complain about that. Now we're at the real meat and potatoes of the Wood Elves, the forest mechanics, starting first with the deep roots. The deep roots connect all of the magical forests in the world, and by traversing these routes you can instantly travel between all of these forests instantly. Now of course this has a cooldown, otherwise it'd be crazy overpowered, but this cooldown can also be reduced, and once you get in a roll of completing rituals, this cooldown will be pinned at 1 for a pretty long time, which means you can move your armies across the map every single turn, and it's stupid. It doesn't matter who owns the forest, you can just get there instantly, but if it's an enemy, just make sure whoever you're sending is ready for a fight. You also keep any move range you have before entering the routes, meaning if a lord hasn't moved that turn and you send him through the routes, he still has all his move range once he arrives. The other forest mechanic is forest restoration. Each of the 8 magical forests in the map have something called forest health. Your objective is to increase this health to the max, and you can do that in a variety of ways. You can complete Whisper in the Woods missions, which give you a choice of asking trespassers to leave or killing them. Each choice has accompanying effects, so it's worth thinking out every time. You can also cleanse heathlands that surround the forest. You can find out which settlements these are by hovering over this symbol. You will receive passive health per turn if you raise or occupy these settlements, or have allies that are the occupants. You will receive nothing if a neutral faction is there, and you will lose health per turn if an enemy lives there. Once you reach certain tiers of health, they will start to provide bonuses that affect the entire faction. This will take too long to list here, so I'll just pop them on the screen so you can see them all. Bear in mind that these effects are felt faction-wide, and you can pretty much leave these forests to get on with whatever they are doing once they're at their max tier, meaning you can get all of these bonuses on you at once pretty easily. Once they reach max forest health, you'll be able to trigger a ritual of restoration. The rituals last 8 turns, and during them, there will be several waves of invaders that you'll need to defend against. Though saying that, you don't even need to own the settlement once the ritual is going, but you will receive bonuses if you do upon completion. Once the rituals are completed, you can also build some unique buildings that provide the faction with some spicy bonuses, so are always worth getting. The Oak of Ages is the only unique area, as the magical forest region extends to the 4 surrounding forests, and the unique buildings in each of these do not require a ritual to be completed in order to be built. Completing the ritual here will require 5 times the amount of forest health, and will unlock the Defense of the Oak battle, which is one of the victory conditions for all Wood Elf factions. Finally, we come to outposts, which are the only kind of settlements you can create outside of magical forests. These can be built anywhere, but never get above being tier 1, and can only have 1 building inside of them. This can be a resource building or a dock, but if there is nothing else around, then you only have 4 choices, and to be honest, none of them are massively tempting. I personally have never used these things, since they just seem like a good way to feed XP and money to my enemies. If you want to set up a port for trade from your capital, I can see it not being a bad idea. That concludes this section of the guide on the campaign strategy. The next section will cover the unit roster and how I believe each unit is best used, so stay tuned for that. The final guide after this one for Warhammer 2 will be the Beastmen, and I've already started playing them on Twitch on Sunday at 5 PM GMT. So if you want to catch that, there'll be a link in the description. All the videos will be posted daily on this channel. If you want to check out the other parts to this or any other guide, there's a link in the card and in the description for a playlist to the series. If you enjoyed this video at any point, then please do consider leaving a like, as it really does help out a lot. And if you want to see more of this type of video, maybe click that subscribe button so you stay up to date. After all, it is free. For now though, I was COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I'll see you next turn.